Remember staring through rich neighbors' windows in the 70s?
Lego tow truck, come in tow truck, emergency on Sunnydale.
The gadgets, toys, and luxuries that seemed impossibly out of reach?
My big Tracy Smoke News 38, now.
These weren't just nice things. They were status symbols that separated the haves from the have-nots in ways that felt totally normal back then. When did dreaming about wealth start feeling so distant? Atari 2600. You ever walk into a rich kid's basement and see that wood grain console sitting next to the TV like a piece of furniture from the future? That was the Atari 2600 in the 1970s. While most families were still arguing over which channel to watch, wealthy households had entered a different dimension, one where you controlled what happened on screen. The cartridges alone cost more than some families spent on groceries, Combat, Pac-Man, Space Invaders. These weren't just games, they were glimpses into tomorrow. Rich kids would casually mention beating their high score while the rest of us were still trying to figure out how pixels moved. The sound of that joystick clicking became the soundtrack of privilege. Nobody talked about the price tag, $200 in 1977 money, which was like buying a small car for entertainment. Walking into those basements felt like entering NASA mission control. The TV glowed with electronic life, while we still had to get up to change channels. Rich kids had multiple cartridges lined up like a personal arcade, each one representing weeks of allowance for normal families. They'd swap games casually, bored with digital tennis after 10 minutes, moving on to space battles like they owned the universe. In-ground swimming pool. If you had an in-ground pool in the 1970s, you weren't just rich, you were royalty. This wasn't an above-ground circle from Sears, this was a concrete crater of status carved into the earth. The installation alone cost more than most people's annual salary, and that was before the weekly maintenance, the pool house, the diving board that looked like modern art. Rich families threw pool parties like they were hosting the Olympics. You'd see underwater lights, built-in speakers, and that magical blue glow that made everything look like a movie set. The rest of us pressed our faces against chain-link fences, watching kids cannonball into what might as well have been liquid gold. Having a pool meant you owned summer itself. The ritual was always the same. Rich kids would mention their pool parties casually at school, knowing full well that half their classmates would never see an invitation. Mercedes-Benz or BMW.
The Mercedes-Benz 240 diesel delivers 28 miles per gallon here and 34 miles per gallon on the highway.
In the 1970s, driving a Mercedes wasn't just transportation. It was a statement written in chrome and leather. While most driveways housed Fords and Chevys, the wealthy rolled up in German engineering that purred like expensive cats. These cars didn't just get you places, they announced your arrival 3 blocks away. The interiors smelled like success. Real leather, real wood, real money. Rich dads would polish them on Saturday mornings while neighborhood kids gathered to stare at the 3-pointed star or the blue and white roundel. These weren't cars, they were rolling advertisements for financial superiority. The sound of those doors closing, that solid bank vault thunk, became the audio signature of wealth. Rich families treated these cars like family members, speaking about maintenance schedules and premium fuel requirements with religious devotion. They'd casually mention their mechanic specialized in European imports, which sounded as exotic as having a personal chef. The cars sat in driveways like sleeping panthers, too beautiful and expensive for normal people to even touch. Sony Betamax. Before Netflix, before DVDs, before anyone imagined rewinding meant anything other than a cassette tape, rich families had the Sony Betamax.
America, stop rushing your life away just to catch a TV show. Get a Sony Betamax video recorder.
This wasn't just a VCR, it was a time machine that let you watch movies whenever you wanted. The concept alone seemed like science fiction to families still adjusting TV antennas. Those chunky beta cassettes cost a fortune, but wealthy households collected them like trophies. You could record TV shows, watch rented movies, even make your own home videos. The picture quality was sharper than anything broadcast, making rich kids' movie nights feel like private theater screenings. Electric garage door opener. Nothing screamed, "We've made it," quite like pulling into your driveway and watching a garage door rise automatically. In the 1970s, this was pure luxury, a motorized gateway that responded to a button on your visor like you were commanding a spaceship. Most families still got out in rain and snow to wrestle garage doors open by hand. Rich neighbors would demonstrate their openers with theatrical flair, pressing that button and waiting for the mechanical symphony to begin. The grinding of gears, the smooth upward motion, the perfectly timed dome light. It was suburban theater at its finest. Having an automatic garage door meant you'd conquered one of life's most mundane struggles and turned it into effortless elegance. The remote control clipped to the car visor became a magic wand. Rich kids would beg to press the button, watching the door respond to their command like trained wildlife. They'd time the opening perfectly, never slowing down, gliding into garages like pilots landing jets. The rest of us fumbled with manual latches in thunderstorms, envying that simple button press that represented the automation of comfort. Home intercom system. Rich houses in the 1970s had their own internal phone networks. Press a button in the kitchen and your voice would crackle through speakers in bedrooms, basement rec rooms, even the garage. "Dinner's ready" became a broadcast instead of a scream up the stairs. These intercom systems turned homes into command centers. Some setups included music distribution. You could pipe your favorite album to every room simultaneously. Kids in wealthy families grew up thinking this was normal, casually buzzing the kitchen for snacks or checking if coast was clear before sneaking out. The rest of us communicated through hollering and footsteps on creaky floors.
Powerful compressor for its size powered the biggest breakthrough in the history of the room air conditioner business.
Central air conditioning. While most families sweated through summers with window units that sounded like freight trains, wealthy homes had central air, silent, invisible climate control that turned entire houses into Arctic retreats. You'd walk into a rich kid's house in July and feel that wall of cool air hit you like entering a luxury hotel. The outdoor condenser unit hummed quietly behind landscaped shrubs, almost apologetically efficient. Rich families acted like 72-degree comfort was a human right, adjusting thermostats with casual indifference to electric bills that would bankrupt normal households. They complained about being cold indoors while the rest of us melted on vinyl car seats and fought over the one good fan. Central air changed everything about summer. Rich kids never knew the misery of sticky nights, oscillating fans that barely moved soupy air, or the strategic placement of box fans to create cross breezes.
You're watching the most exciting game you will ever see on your TV set. Telstar by Coleco, with 3 different games.
Pong console. Before Atari conquered the world, there was Pong, 2 rectangles bouncing a square dot back and forth across a screen. It sounds primitive now, but in 1972, owning a Pong console meant your family lived in the future. This was interactive television, electronic entertainment that responded to your commands. Rich kids would demonstrate Pong like they were revealing nuclear secrets. The paddle controls felt substantial, important. That simple blip, blip, blip sound effect became the heartbeat of early gaming. While most families gathered around board games, wealthy households had discovered digital competition that never ended in lost pieces or arguments over rules. Built-in vacuum system. Forget lugging around a heavy Hoover. Rich houses had vacuum systems built into the walls. You'd see those mysterious round ports in baseboards, wondering what alien technology lurked behind them. One long hose connected to any outlet and sucked dirt through hidden tubes to a central canister, usually hidden in the garage. Cleaning became effortless. Almost elegant, rich housewives would plug in that snake-like hose and glide across rooms like they were conducting an orchestra of cleanliness. The system was so quiet, so efficient, it made regular vacuum cleaners seem like medieval torture devices. This was automation before anyone knew what automation meant.
7 a.m., Jean cooks a complete breakfast in her Litten meal in one. The first microwave oven to cook one.
Microwave oven. In the mid-1970s, microwave ovens were kitchen spacecraft that only wealthy families could afford. These massive countertop units cost more than most cars, but they promised food preparation at the speed of light. Rich neighbors would demonstrate reheating coffee in 30 seconds like they were performing magic. The digital clock display alone seemed futuristic. Rich kids grew up thinking instant food was normal, warming up TV dinners and leftover pizza with the press of a button. The rest of us used stovetops and ovens, waiting like peasants for heat to slowly penetrate our meals. Microwaves weren't just appliances, they were time machines that compressed cooking into moments. Early microwaves were enormous, taking up half the counter space and requiring special electrical outlets.
But when it comes to waterbeds, some people don't like waves.
Waterbed. Nothing said rich and groovy like a waterbed. A mattress that moved like ocean waves and required its own heating system. These weren't just beds. They were aquatic furniture that turned bedrooms into space-age sleeping chambers. The initial investment was massive, and the monthly electric bills would shock normal families. Rich teenagers had waterbeds that made every sleepover feel like floating in warm luxury. You'd sink into the vinyl surface and feel the water shift beneath you, sometimes making you seasick, but always making you envious. The beds came with elaborate wooden frames, built-in nightstands, and that distinctive sloshing sound that became the soundtrack of sophisticated slumber. The setup process was elaborate, filling, heating, conditioning the water with chemicals to prevent algae growth. Rich families treated waterbed maintenance like pool care, testing water quality and adjusting heater settings with scientific precision. Home bar with built-in ice maker. Wealthy 1970s homes had full bars in their basement rec rooms. Not just a few bottles on a shelf, but legitimate bartending stations with professional equipment. The crown jewel was the built-in ice maker that produced perfect cubes on demand, no trays or waiting required. Rich dads would mix martinis and Manhattans like professional bartenders, complete with the theatrical shaking and precise garnish placement. These home bars had leather stools, mirrored backsplashes, and enough glassware to outfit a restaurant. Having a home bar meant you weren't just entertaining, you were operating your own private club. The ice maker was the ultimate luxury. Clear, uniform cubes that never tasted like freezer burn or carried mysterious flavors from forgotten leftovers. Quadraphonic sound system. While most families listened to music through tinny AM radio speakers, wealthy homes had quadraphonic sound systems that turned living rooms into concert halls. 4 speakers positioned in room corners created surround sound decades before anyone called it that. The amplifiers alone were massive, imposing silver monuments to audio superiority. Rich families would demonstrate their systems by playing Pink Floyd or classical music that seemed to float around listeners like audio magic. The sound clarity was so pure it made regular stereos sound like they were playing underwater. These systems cost more than most families' entire furniture budget, but delivered sonic experiences that felt almost religious.
Too tired of struggling with can openers? There's always a sharp metal edge. Ouch! Now there's Perfect Can. It opens the safe, easy way without sharp metal edges.
Electric can opener. Before electric can openers became common, owning one marked your family as forward-thinking and flush with cash. These countertop gadgets seemed almost comically luxurious. A motorized device dedicated to opening cans when manual openers worked perfectly fine for centuries. Rich kitchens featured these humming machines mounted under cabinets or sitting proudly on granite counters. The whirring sound of effortless can opening became a status symbol. Rich housewives would operate them with casual indifference, while the rest of us twisted our wrists raw with hand crank openers that occasionally slipped and drew blood. The electric models opened cans with surgical precision, leaving smooth edges and perfect circles of metal. Pool table. A regulation pool table in the basement wasn't just furniture, it was a monument to leisure time and disposable income. These massive slate surfaces required professional installation and dedicated room space that most families couldn't spare. The green felt, leather pockets, and precise wooden rails turned basements into gentlemen's clubs. Rich kids grew up shooting pool like it was a basic life skill, casually banking shots and calling corners while friends watched in amazement. The clicking of balls, the satisfying thunk of a perfect shot, the weight of those ivory spheres, everything about pool tables screamed expensive sophistication. These weren't games, they were investments in appearing cultured. The installation process required reinforcing basement floors to support massive slate weight. Walk-in closet. While most kids shared cramped bedroom closets or kept clothes in dressers, wealthy children had walk-in closets larger than some people's bedrooms. These weren't just storage spaces. They were personal boutiques with built-in organization systems, special lighting, and enough room to actually walk around your wardrobe. Rich girls would give tours of their closets like museum curators, showing off seasonal rotations and color-coordinated arrangements. Having a walk-in closet meant owning enough clothes to justify the space, which itself was a form of bragging. These closets had better lighting and ventilation than many apartments. Dishwasher. Built-in dishwashers were luxury appliances that saved wealthy families from the drudgery of hand-washing dishes. While most households gathered around kitchen sinks for the nightly scrubbing ritual, rich families loaded their dirty plates into machines that did all the work with hot water and soap. The sound of a dishwasher running became the background hum of affluent homes. Rich kids grew up thinking clean dishes appeared automatically, never learning the meditative practice of washing by hand. These machines weren't just conveniences, they were statements about having better things to do with your time than chores. The dishwashers were built into kitchen cabinetry with seamless integration that made them nearly invisible until you needed them. Rich families could entertain dinner parties without worrying about cleanup, simply loading everything into machines that would handle the dirty work overnight. Color television in multiple rooms. One-color TV was impressive in the 1970s. Having multiple color TVs throughout the house was practically royal treatment. While most families gathered around a single black and white set, wealthy homes had color programming in bedrooms, kitchens, even bathrooms. Each TV was a substantial investment that demonstrated serious disposable income. Rich kids never fought over what to watch because they could retreat to their personal viewing stations. The warm glow of multiple color TVs made wealthy homes feel like entertainment palaces. Tennis court. Nothing announced wealth quite like having your own tennis court. This wasn't just a game. It was a lifestyle statement that required significant land, professional installation, and ongoing maintenance. Rich families would play casual matches while neighbors watched through fence gaps, dreaming about having that much space dedicated to leisure. The perfectly lined court, the net stretched tight, the sound of tennis balls against rackets, everything about private tennis courts felt aspirational. Rich kids learned tennis, like other kids learned bicycles, taking private lessons and joining country club tournaments. Having a tennis court meant you'd conquered both space and sport. Sauna. Rich 1970s homes sometimes included saunas, small wooden rooms lined with benches where families could sweat in Finnish luxury. These weren't just bathrooms with steam. They were dedicated wellness spaces that required special electrical connections and regular maintenance. The concept of sweating for pleasure seemed almost absurdly decadent. Wealthy neighbors would casually mention their evening sauna sessions like discussing the weather. The ritual of heating up, sweating toxins, then cooling down felt sophisticated and European. Having a home sauna meant you'd imported Scandinavian wellness culture into suburban America, which was peak 1970s luxury. Electronic garage. Beyond just automatic door openers, truly wealthy homes had fully electronic garages with multiple bays, built-in workbenches, and electrical systems that controlled lighting, ventilation, and security. These weren't just car storage. They were automotive sanctuaries with climate control and organizational systems that rivaled some businesses. Rich dads would spend weekend hours in these electronic garages, tinkering with tools that cost more than most cars. The garages had better lighting than most homes, with electrical outlets everywhere and ventilation systems that kept air fresh. These spaces felt more like professional workshops than simple car storage. The electronic systems included automatic lighting that activated when vehicles approached, ventilation fans that cleared exhaust fumes, and security systems that monitored access. Rich families treated these garages like additional living spaces, installing heating and air conditioning to ensure year-round comfort for automotive hobbies that normal families pursued in drafty sheds.
On deck for
Radio Shack intercoms put your family within hearing distance anywhere in the house.
Mom, I'm listening to music.
Intercom doorbell system. Rich houses had doorbell systems that let you talk to visitors before deciding whether to let them in. Instead of just hearing a simple chime, wealthy families had two-way communication systems that turned front doors into security checkpoints. You could screen visitors like a personal secretary. The crackling sound of the intercom, the slight delay in conversation. Rich kids grew up thinking this level of visitor control was normal, never experiencing the vulnerability of just opening doors to see who was there. The intercom systems included video capabilities in the most advanced installations, allowing homeowners to see visitors before speaking with them. Rich families could identify guests, delivery personnel, or unwanted solicitors without leaving their comfortable positions inside climate-controlled homes. The power to communicate without physical presence felt like science fiction luxury. Cedar closet. Wealthy homes featured dedicated cedar closets for storing furs, woolens, and seasonal clothing. These weren't just storage spaces. They were climate-controlled preservation chambers lined with aromatic wood that repelled moths and maintained fabric quality. The rich, woody smell of cedar became associated with expensive clothing care. Rich families would rotate seasonal wardrobes in and out of these specialized closets like museum curators handling precious artifacts. Having a cedar closet meant owning clothes valuable enough to require professional-level storage, which itself was a form of bragging about wardrobe investment. The cedar installation required specialized construction techniques and ongoing maintenance to preserve the wood's natural insect-repelling properties. Rich families treated these closets like wine cellars for fabric, maintaining optimal humidity and temperature conditions for preserving expensive garments that normal families would wear until they fell apart.
If you want a pencil, pony as can be, give it to Albert Alligator Pencil Chomper, he's funny.
Electric pencil sharpener. While most kids struggled with hand-crank sharpeners that ate pencils alive, wealthy households had electric pencil sharpeners that produced perfect points with the press of a button. These desktop machines hummed with efficiency, creating pencil shavings so uniform they looked machine-made because they were. Rich kids would demonstrate their electric sharpeners like showing off sports cars, inserting pencils, and watching them emerge with surgical precision. The motor sound, the automatic stop when point was perfect, the collection chamber that never overflowed. Everything about electric sharpeners felt luxurious and unnecessary, which made them perfect status symbols. The sharpeners were industrial-grade machines adapted for home use, featuring powerful motors and precision-cutting mechanisms that could handle any pencil size or hardness. Rich families placed them in home offices or study areas, creating professional workspace environments that made homework feel like important important business rather than childhood drudgery. Home security system. Rich, 1970s. Homes pioneered residential security with alarm systems that connected to monitoring services. While most families relied on locks and neighborhood watch programs, wealthy households had electronic protection that could summon police automatically. The control panels with their blinking lights and cryptic codes made homes feel like military installations. Having a security system meant you owned things valuable enough to protect professionally. The monthly monitoring fees alone exceeded most families' entertainment budgets. Rich neighbors would casually mention setting the alarm, like discussing any routine household task, but everyone knew this represented a level of wealth worth protecting. The systems included motion detectors, door sensors, and glass break monitors that created invisible security networks throughout houses. Rich families programmed elaborate entry codes and established check-in procedures with monitoring companies that provided 24-hour surveillance services. Their homes became electronically protected fortresses while we relied on deadbolts and hoping for the best. Spiral staircase. Some wealthy homes featured dramatic spiral staircases that served as architectural centerpieces rather than simple means of moving between floors. These weren't practical additions. They were artistic statements that demonstrated sophisticated design sense and unlimited renovation budgets. The staircases curved gracefully upward with hand-forged railings and custom-fitted steps that required master craftsmen to install. Rich families would position these staircases prominently in entryways where visitors couldn't miss their elegant sophistication. Having a spiral staircase meant you'd prioritized beauty over efficiency, which was the ultimate luxury. Walking up these staircases felt like ascending to nobility, each step a reminder of the homeowner's refined taste and financial capability. Rich kids would slide down banisters or sit on steps during parties, using architectural art as playground equipment in ways that normal families couldn't imagine. Which one made you green with envy the most? The 1970s were a time when wealth gaps felt enormous, but somehow more acceptable. A time when rich families lived like royalty while the rest of us pressed our noses against the glass, dreaming about automatic garage doors and color TVs in every room. These luxuries remind us how much we've changed, for better and worse, and maybe make us a little nostalgic for that innocent envy we can never quite shake.